Okay guys, so the very first review of the latest addition to this channel, Nanatsu no Taizai chapter 2 to 6, and it was pretty interesting. I'm just going to say that. So right away we see how Meliodas is just charging Seldoris, and he is going in hard, pretty much without restraint, as we see everything around Meliodas and Seldoris just be blown to pieces, including Seldoris in fact, because he's not the real deal, just an illusion. And this is very interesting on its own because we see just how determined Meliodas is to finish this war between the demon clan and everyone else. This is of course heavily fueled by him not wanting to lose Elizabeth, of course, because we recently learned that Elizabeth will die in 3 days unless the curse is broken. So we see Meliodas completely serious with an enemy for once. We barely see him serious in this series. It has happened from time to time, but it's not that common of a sight. This was seen as Meliodas annihilated Derriere and Monspiet for shits and giggles. Truly not something that he did because he was angry at them and whatnot. He just came in, just woke up, wanted to demonstrate his power to them and just fucking executed them right away. However, we see his emotions completely swept away by the very sin that he is entitled to, wrath, followed by the fact that Meliodas charged into the obvious trap. He's caught in yet another trap by the commandment of faith, Melascula, and this is kind of where the chapter kicked into what we're going to be seeing for the next few chapters, I imagine, which is Meliodas having to undergo some kind of game of riddles set up by Melascula while his comrades have to fight off an unending wave of fallen soldiers which seem to be empowered by Meliodas' dark energy. So what we're looking at here is an hourglass scenario where Meliodas will be put under a lot of pressure, having to solve whatever Melascula has in store for him, and the longer it continues, the longer the other sins will have to fight off the skeletal soldiers. Skeletons which seem to be having an ever-growing power. Now, we know that Melascula is the commandment of faith, and so I'm sure these riddles are going to be based on that in some way. Doesn't necessarily have to be, but these commandments seem to have a pattern of staying very loyal to their own commandment in situations like this one. So belief is something that's going to play a huge role in this fight, if we want to call it that. Meliodas is undoubtedly going to be faced with something pretty challenging, and since it's a riddle, it's most likely going to be based off of Meliodas' ability to solve complicated problems. Don't get me wrong, I've not really been invested in this series for a very long time, so I could be reading into some of these things too much, but Meliodas isn't exactly that heavy when it comes to thinking ahead, at least from what I've been able to tell, which kind of tells me that it's going to be equally challenging for Meliodas within this trap as it will be for the other sins on the outside, and they can't help each other. That's kind of the key thing here, since Meliodas has been transported away from the others beyond the distortion barrier by the looks of things. So it really does come down to faith at the end of the day. Meliodas is just going to have to believe that the other can keep the minions occupied without running out of energy before he has solved whatever needs solving. I mean, Ban can of course not physically die, so he's not really the one in danger here, but the others are not quite as luxurious as he is. They will run out of energy sooner or later, and obviously unless Meliodas can complete Melascula's test, then they will end up dying, and I don't really see that happening because this series is not really that heavy on death when it comes to main characters. I mean, it's a shonen, so yeah. I mean, it's a gory series, so I'm sure we're going to be seeing Ban getting chopped up really good very soon, but he's not going to die really. He doesn't really have to worry about that. However, most people at the scene has someone in Camelot that they care for, and this of course builds up their determination and the will to prevail for the sins. Ban more than the others, I'd say, seeing how he has a holy knight in Camelot that's actually someone he values a lot. That's being Jericho, of course, so he's not going to give in from that lack of stamina just because a few skeletons are being unendingly persistent to keep fighting. So I'm sure we'll be seeing some cool stuff in the upcoming chapters of this series, and I can't wait for the main fights with the commandments, especially Meliodas and the real Seldoris, because that is going to be a sight to behold for sure, especially since Meliodas kind of wants to use Seldoris' power that is borrowed from the Demon King in order to save Elizabeth and himself from their curse, but primarily Elizabeth over himself. Anyway, I'll be ending the video here. Let me know what you think down below in the comments. It's a bit of a mess probably since it's my very first video on Nanatsu no Taizai. And as always, if you did, please like this video. If you enjoyed, and subscribe if you're new to my channel. This has been your favorite host, Perm, and I'll see you soon.